Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Junk Lab Alchemy. So, I wanted to kind of show my environment and kind of maybe invite you guys to see that I don't have the most incredible space to work in. Which is kind of the reason why I'm keeping the builds small. Here I am opening up one of my bins. I had this Nerf gun that I had for a while now. I've been plotting on it, but I only want to use a certain part of this thing, and you'll see momentarily. But I also have two other Nerf guns that I've been storing for a bit now. And those two pieces will be combined along with one of the parts I'm taking from this Nerf gun, which in my head, well, in theory, it should work, but I won't know until this thing comes apart. My last videos, I haven't really shown much of this process, so I figured I'd show myself taking this thing apart. You know, it's part of the game. It takes up quite some time sometimes, but it is part of what I enjoy. It's pretty meditative, and I really do enjoy putting some relaxing music in the background and just kind of going to town on these things. Yeah, a little force on this one, just let me rip this piece off, but it came out perfectly. It's actually the piece I was looking for. I wanted to show more of this process because it's an enjoyable process, but this piece here is the main piece that started this particular video. I saw this kind of like half of this thing looked like a little transporter, kind of like one engine type of a little spacecraft or transporter, like single person transporter. And I often catch myself wondering what's the use of these little things that I'm building. And I'm starting to realize that in the world that I'm creating, a lot of the characters are kind of spread out and on their own. So they're not necessarily seeing combat. They're like retrieving information, seeing if there's any survivors, and even, you know, looking out for potential threats. So this little cruiser transporter thing is going to be of that use. I've had some drones that I created previously, like search drones and like recon type of little ships and drones. And this one's going to be somewhat similar. Now, I want to bring up the fact that Nerf tends to use a lot of orange in their toys. So as I build this thing out, I come to the realization that I'll be working with a lot of orange, which kind of makes it really hard to kind of see what you're looking at. Normally, once I paint the final design build or whatever you want to call it, I normally paint it like a gray or a black. Well, at least that's what I've been doing thus far. And it really lets you see things a bit better. And in my past builds, I've noticed that I've used like different colors, and you know, things have, or some of the materials I've used have had different colors. So when you put it together, there's that difference, right? That you can see like different shapes and what you're working on clearer. And this is me cleaning up after kind of starting this project. Cut off a bunch of parts to kind of make things a lot smoother and easier to work with, as far as a surface to like glue on and things like that. This is me getting some ideas. I do have a Star Wars action figure that my son had that broke, so I might kind of fit them into the little cockpit on this thing later on. For now, I'm just kind of going through the parts that I have available, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with them or how this thing's going to kind of build out. This is the main piece though. This is the main piece that kind of got the wheels turning, and it almost fits perfectly. In the end, I wind up chopping this thing up. You'll see later on. But same scenario here, just cutting out the parts that are going to keep this thing from kind of coming together. You know, a lot of times when you take these things apart, there's little like areas for screws to go into that tend to stick out. And you got to kind of cut those out and try to figure out how this thing's going to fit on here. But right here is the deciding moment. I kind of like that it's stuck out kind of on its own, almost like a wing. But in order to fit it like that, I'd have to take a totally different approach. So I decided to cut this back piece off, which would have wrapped around the thruster. And you'll see how I get it to go on later on. It kind of fit perfectly in the end. But here's that second Nerf gun that I took apart, or at least these are the small parts from that previous deconstructed Nerf gun. And like this part right here, for example, would have went in perfectly, but there was a couple of plastic pieces getting in the way, so I have to remove those. And that's what I'm doing here, kind of just clipping some of that stuff off. And I wind up using like a razor to kind of cut out the excess or the leftover plastic. Where is my knife? And it's somewhere. There it is. And I'm going to take that, and I kind of just do this little technique right here. Kind of whatever gets hooked on there gets kind of cut off. Most of it's already been removed, but I kind of just go back and forth, and normally whatever it hooks onto slices right off. And yeah, but I wound up doing that for a bit, making sure it was pretty smooth. Put my knife back, and then let's see if this thing fits. And it doesn't fit in that way, but it will go in that way. Perfect. So that's kind of how it pops in. And the two pieces where the cockpit is and the back piece were already almost part of the actual Nerf gun. So I'm almost cutting out one half of it off and just kind of using what's left over. Now there was some parts in between that I cut out or didn't add back in, but even still, it's mostly where the trigger would go is what kind of triggered me to see somewhat of a little vehicle or a little transporter. And here I am trying to figure out yet again how to make this thing interesting, how to fill in holes, and how to get it to kind of just look cool. This plate here, I wind up adding in. It just covered a really big spot within this little build, and it also had a cool shape and some holes that I liked. So I went ahead and glued that guy on there. There it is. So far, it's looking pretty cool. And I want to put this out there. I don't really have too much of a game plan a lot of the time, and I haven't necessarily been trying to understand this, like in terms of rules of what people see to be good or not good. I know that a lot of times I hear people say it's frowned upon to like use like Lego pieces without trying to alter them, and you should try to alter your parts as much as possible to go away from the original toy or whatever it is you're using. And that does make sense to me, and I do my best to kind of go that route. But right now, it's like when you see something, you see it. And I can't unsee it once I see it. And that's what happened with this piece. I just saw it and I was like, well, let me work it and see what happens. And since this is all new to me, I mean, why not? This is me kind of fast forwarding through some of this stuff. Otherwise, this video would wind up being like 10 hours long. So yeah, I'm gluing on some more parts. And you know, as I build this thing and shoot this thing, I realize that, you know, there's so many different things I still have to try in terms of shooting actual video. Like I'm considering doing like a overhead shot, maybe like a static overhead shot where I can kind of place my camera there and just always have that shot. But yeah, I know I gotta get, you know, well, at least I don't have to. I want to make the shots look better, and I want to make this as interesting as possible for you guys. And I hope so far you guys are pleased, or at least noticing the small changes and things I've been trying out. Anyway, moving forward, here it is that little wing piece, and it kind of wind up sitting right on the lip of the bottom half of this thing, and it just looked perfect at this point. It fit perfectly, and it was really going in a direction that I liked, so I decided that's where that's gonna sit, right there. And in the end, I liked it. I wound up having to sand off the Nerf symbol or logo, which is kind of I don't know if it's like the way they I think it's the way they print it onto the plastic and then they run like paint over it. So I have to sand that off. But so far, this is kind of it right here, for the most part. And put this little like piece up front that I'm considering to be some type of like tracking system for like missiles or something like that. I notice them a lot on like military vehicles. Helicopters specifically have these, like, I don't know what they are, radar, night vision, whatever it is, but I added one of those guys to the front of this thing. And I'm not sure what I'm doing here aside from really trying to figure out how I'm gonna glue this side wing thing here. And the contacts for it are pretty solid. Once I figured out that I can just glue it around the bottom edge and towards the back there with some hot glue, and then followed up with some crazy glue, I think I get what I want out of gluing this thing on. And I really wind up liking it in the end, I must say. I also, before I get into any painting or anything like that, I gotta figure out how to shoot outside. You know, I do most of the priming outside because I've been using spray paint, so it's a little stinky. So I want to be able to set up a camera out there so you guys can see my approach to that, and just kind of inviting you guys in more to see what I've been kind of going through. And then here's the figure my son had. And I'm kind of cutting him up right now and setting him up to kind of adjust him. His head was facing in the wrong direction. His arms were kind of two totally different positions, and I wanted them to kind of look like he was, you know, had his hands on like a steering wheel. So I cut off his head to redirect his head facing forward, and I went up cutting off his arms and also repositioning them with hot glue, and it worked out actually perfectly. In the end, I intended to use the legs, which I could have bent forward, but once I had the steering wheel in place, I decided that I'm just gonna get him into the cockpit and then I'm gonna glue him down, and I don't want him coming out because I just don't feel like I need it to be that way. So I decided that I removed the legs so I don't have to worry about making an area within the ship for its legs, and then I was gonna re-glue them on the bottom of the actual cockpit hole. But then I wound up just putting up a plate, and once I spray painted it just didn't matter at that point for me. And here I am adding some details. I imagine these little pieces here to be like a step for you to get onto the back of this thing. As you can see, it has like a lip. I wound up painting it yellow later, almost like so you can see it in the dark, like a visible yellow. This is after I started to sand it down. Not exactly the end job in terms of the sanding, but that's when I started doing it. I use this little Lego piece as almost like the back, like a seat almost, like that he's sitting in, and it looked pretty cool. This is me using a pencil to kind of push down some hot glue that was sticking out, and it worked perfectly. I wind up going through some bins where I have all of the big or large, middle, and large, medium, and small parts separated in these little bags. I was going through the bags just trying to find smaller pieces to add details, but by this time I thought it was pretty much coming to an end. I started to clean up. Figured I'd show some of this process. I mean, there's so much junk everywhere, and plastic parts that tend to fly. So in this little studio space, there's literally plastic all over the floors right now. And this is me showing some support to other builders and little crafters and painters and artists, just trying to find some inspiration while the paint dried on the primer that I pretty much wind up painting outside. This is normally what I do in between drying paint. Moving forward, and here we are. After the primer paint dried, which was pretty much overnight at this point. This is the following day. I wanted this piece to fit into the little world that I've been creating. So I wanted to stick to the natural colors, greens and browns, just to kind of have it look military in a way. And so I started with this like army green on my little wireless airbrush gun, which I'm learning still how to use and how to keep clean, and it's been really interesting. I know in the long run I will be buying an airbrush, like a real airbrush with a compressor and all that. I think it would really help in terms of like not running out of battery, or dealing with like the pressure kind of slowly going away as the battery dies. And it's just something I need to eventually invest into. I originally bought this one just because I felt like I'm working on these small projects, and it was only like $60 for the whole kit. And it just made sense, and it still does. I mean, as you can see here, it does the job for the most part. I haven't really had any issues with it other than the tip drying all the time, because the airflow is constant. It's not like a real airbrush where you press down for air and pull back for paint. It's just constantly, almost like you're holding down that button. So if you can imagine, you spray something, if you don't wipe the tip, that constant spray will dry it out. So you got to remember to shut it off in between. It's just a pain in the butt, but for the most part, it's like one color here, maybe two colors. It does do the job, and I'm enjoying using it. But this is me kind of going in with some browns, and I wind up adding some yellows as well. But overall, I really liked the way this thing came out. There is some parts that I'll obviously go back later on and kind of change up. Like, for example, I'm not liking the idea of just having this character be a Star Wars character. I wind up painting him in my own paint, basically, just to kind of have him fit more into the build. But I know in the long run I will be changing the head up a bit. I want to add some almost like goggles or something like that, just to kind of pull it away from a Star Wars character and make it look more like my own. And here I am going in, fast forwarding some of these parts, because I was going at this thing for quite some time, and I am somewhat of a slow painter, I guess, when it comes to this stuff, or maybe not, I'm not sure. But I do enjoy this part, so I do somewhat take my time. Yeah. So, one thing, I've been weathering a lot of my my builds so far. So I decided that I didn't want to do that too much with this one. Like, I do want to add some weathering, but I don't want to weather it as much as some of the other ones. I imagine this particular transporter has not necessarily been on the field as long as some of the other transporters and vehicles. So I am going to weather it, but not as much as the others. Long story short, that's basically it. I wanted to say, well, this is kind of like a newer vehicle within the fleet that I'm creating. Yeah. Here I am adding some yellows in here, just to kind of make it pop a little more. I wound up doing like multiple layers of this yellow, and then kind of adding these, more yellow in areas that I felt were like, areas on a spacecraft or vehicle that you want to be seen. So I imagine this can be used as like some type of a handle or something like that. And then I did it back here on the step. I imagine you want to see that step, so maybe make it a brighter color, which is what I'm doing here. Added a couple layers. And in other news, I've been looking more into paint, and I realize I have to, in the end, wind up getting more into some really like decent model paint. There's been some really nice people out there to reach out or even give me some direction in terms of what paint I should be looking into. And there's been some really cool people out there. Terrain by Aaron specifically was very nice, to kind of reach out, show some appreciation, and more importantly give me some advice. So that's always welcome. So thank you, Aaron. And yeah, moving forward, here I am adding some of this red. Now mind you, it was already kind of like more vibrant tomato kind of red, but I like this like really dark, almost like blood red, and it leaves like this really nice shiny finish. And here I am kind of just painting in some more black back into it. Some areas, I missed with some paint. I also wanted to do some weathering, and I started kind of just adding a little black here and there and just kind of wiping it away. Just kind of taking that approach, and kind of leaves this like a wash over it. Makes it look a little bit more abused or used, or like it's been out in weather. So yeah, it's looking pretty cool. Yeah, but I would like to say that as I build these little spacecrafts, I'm also kind of missing an area for them in my space. So I'm considering building out have this like shelf. I'll show you guys in a future video. I'm thinking about building out a whole like backsplash wall type thing where I can work on and I can kind of set them up. In other words, when I'm done with them, instead of just placing them on display like on top of a table or shelf, I want to kind of build a little world is what I think I'm after, and then basically incorporate all these characters and these vehicles into that little like world. So I'll show you guys in another episode of what I'm going for, but here I am using some of this metallic silver to kind of add in you know, a little metal to this thing, some scrapes, and you know, actually show the metal like you see here, how it's all starting to pop out. Just gives it more detail and just makes it look pretty. So here I am just adding all this stuff in certain areas only, none crazy. Again, I like to think this vehicle is still somewhat new, and in this little universe I'm creating, I don't think you just go out and buy anything. I feel like every vehicle and every tool is something that's made specifically by an individual for a particular use. So this thing is like exactly what it is. It's just made out of junk. So maybe this thing was once like a plane, a car, and you know, a few motorcycles or something like that. And yeah. So yeah, here I am adding some scrapes and scratches to just about almost everything, especially in the back and the front. Kind of the middle areas didn't get much. Added some to his helmet later on, but yeah, thrusters and all this in the back got some details. This little like antenna thing in the back, and I even went in for these little like corners. As you can see here, they pop out really nice once you add a little silver in there. And overall, I really like this thing. I'm excited to just kind of see them together. I haven't done, again, I don't have a space for that yet, but you'll see. I'm working on it. I have some ideas, and I think I have the perfect space for it in my studio. So that'll be coming soon. And another thing is these voiceovers are also getting really hard. Just so much. But yeah, here's some final clips of the actual build, and here we are. I really love it. In the end, I was really happy with it. Kind of got exactly what I wanted out of it. There's a couple things I would change. Obviously, there's always something, but overall, I like to think that if this thing was life-size, I wouldn't have a problem jumping and flying this thing all over the place. I just think it would be badass. Maybe I'll add like a big old speaker somewhere so I can listen to some music or something. But other than that, I think this thing is awesome. I love it. As you can see, the hand here popped out, which I'll add back in. I was just exhausted, but I'll wind up posting a photo or something of the final hand on the steering wheel there. But yeah, here's some details. Got this like mysterious light going. Yeah, it's been really cool. I want to thank all of you guys, not only here on YouTube but on Instagram. I really appreciate all the support. I have other videos on the way. I don't think I plan on stopping this anytime soon. I only intend on these to get better and more interesting. And I just also want to get better at this. I'm noticing a lot of things that I want to implement, like styrene, for example. I notice a lot of guys using that stuff. And I think I could really use that stuff to kind of fill in certain areas and kind of even make my own shapes and like panels and things like this. But for now, again, I've just been enjoying going after an idea or seeing things differently. It's been great. I've been having a good time hanging out with my son. He's been down here building stuff, and it's just been really cool. Yeah, I'm excited about it. Here's some more shots. Here's that tracking system I mentioned earlier. Is this little piece up front. And this is a shot of it right after I was done in the lab. And I really love it. I can't wait to add it to the rest of the team. And yeah, it's been great. I really appreciate you guys watching. Check me out on Instagram. I'm considering maybe even doing a TikTok for this stuff, but for now, more YouTube videos on the way. Please like and subscribe. This is Junk Lab Alchemy, and I'll see you soon.